So yeah, welcome to Lord's Table number 12. Can you hear me okay? Everything all right with Mike?
You're a little soft.
Yep.
Do that a bit closer. Okay, so yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining. We've given a few minutes. I think we can start now. So, Lord's Table 12. Let's get into the agenda. Have it on slide, please. So what we'll do is a quick recap for any newcomers and for those who might be watching this later on down the line on YouTube. Loaf will give us a update on what's been going on with the, I guess, core game, Eternum. Then I will pass over to Amaro, who will run through some thinking and some creative. Then we will have a kind of the meat of this conversation, a conversation about the Constitution and the funding proposals that have been posted in the sort of House of Lords as drafts in the last 10 days, and then have a Q&A. So if people want to share views on that, then they're welcome to. And then we'll pass over to Loot Hero, who will talk us through the development progress made on the adventurers primitives that will allow people to build their own games inside their Realms ecosystem. And then we'll pass over to the hackathon team, who are building out Empire, Rothschild and Tomorrow for sure, for a quick introduction to what they are up to. And then we'll have a quick look at the at the Lisbon hackathon deck and what we take away from that. And then there's some odds and ends to talk about, and then a Q&A for any other questions that we want to ask. So, yep, that's the agenda. The recap. So, welcome to any newcomers. If you tab on one more, please. So, Bibliotheca DAO is a decentralized game studio. We're building an open source protocol, and this community, alongside players, is very rich with developers and engineering talent. And we are on the very, very, very cutting edge of Stark validity rollups on StarkNet. And we're also really trying to push and be as embracing of AI and ML to our workflow and into our products as possible. The governance of the DAO is the 8,000 Realms NFTs. And so the next slide shows us what the kind of DAO is building, which is an on-chain gaming ecosystem. It's a fantasy universe which is community driven in terms of lore and in terms of everything else. It's modular by design, so this sort of gaming ecosystem can be expanded by the DAO, other entities, and it's designed to be interoperable with other Web3 projects, other Loop projects, other StarkNet projects to make those integrations already. The two kind of key products that we're developing. So Realms Eternum is a browser-based strategy game. It's literally designed to run forever. So the game state and logic run on chain, and if anything were to happen to StarkNet, it could be unpicked from the proofs settled on Ethereum and the game state restored. It's a game of trading, raiding, and diplomacy. To play, you'll need one of the 8,000 Realms NFTs. It's built on layer 2 StarkNet, but sitting on Ethereum. And it's the metagame of the ecosystem where resources are produced and lords are produced, which are used across the whole gaming ecosystem. And you can think it's a bit of thinking of what it is, it's a mix of many things, but a little bit of Travian, a little bit of E online in terms of the market dynamics, a little bit of like Risk the board game in there. And there's lots of references we could draw on, but a browser-based strategy game. The second kind of core product that we are developing is a little bit different in the sense that it's not an out-of-the-box game to play. It's a gaming platform, an on-chain gaming platform. So we're building out the primitives and the infrastructure as the DAO which will allow developers to build games and experiences in a permissionless way, i.e., there is a way for them to develop games without requiring to come to the central organization and ask for permission. But it will use the same resources as the Eternum game. The realms kind of key assets work across the Eternum game and Adventurers games, and in the future other games. And so the way to think about this is you have players and you have builders interacting in this sort of two-sided marketplace, a bit like Roblox, but on chain. So that's a real quick look at the DAO and also the Realms ecosystem and the two key products. And then the next slide, very briefly, it's why we're bullish on StarkNet. Aside from the fact it's low-cost transactions, Starks also allow for richer, heavier computation to take place verifiably as true on-chain. So that's great for building games. It's also got native account abstraction, which will reduce user experience, friction, onboarding, and actually playing the game and how you interact with wallets. It also facilitates things like co-op play through one of the modules that we're developing within the DAO with Distracted Dev and Guildly. It's tried and trusted. I know that kind of sounds crazy about something that's in alpha, but StarkX has settled, I think it's $750 billion, which sounds ridiculous, but that was the number that was on Ethereum. And that's 100x times ZK Sync. So it's actually got a certain amount of history and track record that other twos don't have. It's also, we believe, quantum resistant. So we're taking a long-term view with this game, and so building the place where we think that the technology will last the longest. So some of the downsides, or some of the things to have in mind, when we're building on this environment, is that it's we believe the best tech, but we're very early, so we have to go through the both sides of the coin, the opportunity and the sort of growing pains, rather the teething pains. It's a network in development. The alpha has recently been disrupted. The testnet has recently been disrupted by people botting it, hoping to get an airdrop. So it's made life very challenging from development perspective. And also the programming language is a new programming language, Cairo, which is being updated on the fly with a version 1 being released sometime in the next month or two. And so those updates break our game. So yeah, it's we believe it's the right place to be, but it does come with some as I say, teething issues. And that's the sort of intro for anyone who's just new to the project. And then we'll kind of get into now, Loaf, do you want to talk through one final point is that we are a DAO. And although there is a kind of core team in inverted commas, we do very much want everyone in the DAO to be contributing in any way that they can or want to, whether that's creative, whether that's just spreading the word, or just being somebody who gives their feedback and opinion or tests the game, for example. It's a DAO. We want everyone to participate. And so if you want to get involved, you can. Just spend time in the Discord and ask questions. Yeah, so first product, Eternum. I don't know if you want to give us an update again
on. Yes, GM, everybody. So I'm going to give a quick little run through of Eternum, the current alpha build. This is running on my local host. Hopefully I don't run into any bugs, but I apologize if I do. It's we're deep in building this client at the moment. Look, we definitely underestimated how hard it was going to build an on-chain game from an engineering point of view and just mechanics-wise. I mean, it's hard enough to build a game, then building all the logic on chain that interfaces smoothly with the interface is another challenge. So, but we're making significant progress. We kind of got stuck, as Secretive just mentioned, because of the testnet was potted. But is what it is. We are still very early in this whole L2 space, but this is where all the action will be. In the crypto space in the next 6 to 12 months, everything's going to be on L2s. See you later, other L1s. So yeah, we're like all the user like elements in this kind of client are they're still very much works in progress. We've been trying to figure out a bunch of new UX problems that really like I don't think have ever existed in games until on-chain games actually until games that actually leverage native account abstraction. So there's a bunch of like UX problems that we've been trying to solve, and we think we're almost there. But there are some little bugs, and we're cleaning up, refactoring, and making things nicer. And for any tech developers out there, this is all just done in React right now. And basically that for non-tech people, that's just a pretty common, very robust web framework. And this is the first client, but in the future we plan to build a much more robust native graphics client. But that's going to come after we've kind of cracked the core UX gameplay and mechanics, because in our mind the most important thing to us is getting the mechanics right and getting the UX right, rather than fluffy graphics. So that's kind of where we're spending a lot of our time. But luckily, I'll show you in a minute. Some of these text to image models have actually totally changed the game in the past 2 weeks. So, but yeah, so you can see these little lines. So these are actually live travel events happening on the Atlas, and so anybody traveling, any like armies traveling around the map will actually be able to see. So I don't know what's going on up here. There's a lot of stuff going on up here. I think that's you, Squiddy. Someone's.
Yep.
So and these that's you. These colorful castles are my castles. So you can see they're all spread out over the map. I can click on one, and it'll take me see what this is, Penton, and I can go into my builder menu, and so this is what I was saying before about and graphics text to image to the rescue. Like we've I think Amaro and I and Dham and Pinky and we've been talking and playing around with these text models for a long time, but they weren't really quite good enough. But MJ4 came out about Midjourney 4 came out about 2 weeks ago, and like it's actually totally changed the game. Like so Amaro as a creative director now can leverage this basically as his own art team. I actually just made these up in like a couple of hours on Saturday. So I definitely suggest anybody that's actually curious about this, go and just play with it, because you can get some insane results. And it means that we can create lots of different clients. So like this is kind of like semi-anime, but someone wants to create like a pixel client, or maybe like a watercolor client, or a charcoal client or something. You could create your images, and we can have a little button you can switch between whatever view you want. Which is kind of crazy. Like that wouldn't be possible like a month ago. So this is the kind of building menu of the realm. You see here I've got one military building of each, so I didn't need to build anymore. So I might go to a different realm actually. So I got my empire page here, and you see here these are my realms that are settled. These are all the actions that have happened on my realm. So it's like history report, and then I've got my quick actions, which is this is kind of like temporary thing for testing. But you see my total production rate across my realms. Actually harvest my realms, so that just adds can harvest all my realms like that quickly, one button. And then I got my armies tab. So these are the guys that like do all the work around the realms, and they're all you can build as many armies as you want on each realm, but the consequence of that is that you actually each unit takes a population up, so which then consumes food. So you need to really manage that, otherwise you'll just be constantly have an unhappy realm. So I'll just go to this guy. I don't think I've built anything on this guy. Yeah, not really. So you see here, I've got my population. Actually, I've got quite a few armies. So I'm 47 population from armies, 15 from buildings. I got my happiness, which is getting wrecked because of I don't have my relic, and I don't have enough food, and I don't have any defending army. Sorry, I do have a defending army, so I'm not losing any happiness from that. I have no food in my store, and my building utilization isn't that much, and I've got 250 resources generated, and my vault has actually I could claim all my resources right now. So I think when I click this claim button, it'll actually claim my entire vault. And what was I going to do? Oh yeah. So what I was saying before about like that UX problem is that, if anyone's played blockchain games before, like, you have to sign all these buttons, right? Every time you do something. Now this is account abstractions totally changed that game. So let's just say, I want to build a barracks. So I'll click construct, add it to my queue. Now when I build units, I actually need like the required building in order to build these. And so what we've done is that if you queue up a building, now you can actually add units to your armies. So let's just so I've already got 10 hunter and 3 paladins. I'll just add some soldiers. And you can see here, I don't have enough ignium, but that's fine. Let's just go summon. And I'll show you. So I'll just get rid of these resources for now. Just clogging everything up. But now you can see I've built my barracks and I've summoned this army, but I still have this resource deficit. So what we can do is actually just click resource and reconcile deficits, and I'll add those resources to like a swap, and then I can just go buy, add them to the cart, and if you actually arrange, this will all be automatically done in the next version. But if you you can think of these transactions as like be sequentially processed by the blockchain. And so I need resources in order to build the barracks. I need the barracks in order to build the army. Now, if I click sign, I can just sign once, and it will just process all of them. So this should work. So you can kind of there's definitely a lot of work to do on this kind of UX side of things. We can make it even smoother. But you can imagine, like, you can go around, you need to build something dependent on something else. You can add that first in your queue, and then, you can queue up like 20 transactions and just sign once. And, you're ready to go. So yeah, that worked. So, I buy my resources, then I'm building a barracks, and I'm summoning some soldiers for that army. So this is a total game changer with on-chain games. We'll see definitely a lot more of this in the future. So while that's building, I'll go back to here, and I can go and raid someone. So all these this is so awesome, aren't they? Let's go here. I think I can raid this guy. So squids a lot. So this is like a rating screen. And you can see here I've got my my troops, this army from this realm, and this is Squid's army. And this is the vault that I can potentially raid, and the relic's vulnerable, so I could get the relic. But there is one catch, and I think it's not currently in the UI, but actually, if you don't have enough food on your realm, then your troops will have half fatality. So I'll probably get wrecked if I do this, but I'll just do it anyway. See, that went through. This is all built now. Now if I can just go raid. This whole screen is like in the middle of a facelift, so just, yeah. Didn't quite get to it. We've been furiously building this client, but there's so many like little bits and tweaks and stuff, but we're narrowing in on a good UX and architecture. So it's going to be iterating very fast now. So I'll just queue that raid up just for fun. We'll see what happens. but I think I'll lose. There's definitely a lot more context to put into here. Yeah, so that screen's a bit buggy, but you get the idea. But yeah, so that's really, there's still a lot of work to do on the client side of things, but it's evolving very fast, and most of the gameplay's here. For this like first iteration, there's a lot to manage. But yeah, anyone from the team think I missed a big chunk?
Show how you might filter. So start with like clear the filters and show how you might like identify a resource that you like.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to this game. It's definitely not a simple game, so there's a lot to unpack. So don't feel overwhelmed by the information. I know some people on the team that have just started playing it are a little overwhelmed. So but it's not a simple game. So if you say you want to identify something, there's not that many realms settled right now, so it's it's hard to rate people because there's only like 60 realms that are settled. But let's just say say there's all the realms that are settled. You can do this. Say I want to find some Twilight Courts or something, and you can see that's on the map. That's all the location of the Twilight Courts. But there is this. Well, that's me, so I can't rate myself. But what about True Eyes? Yeah, okay. Secretive. There we go. Coming to get you. So I can click rateable, and then I can look at my armies, and I can say I'll take this army, and so I hit travel here, and that's going to queue up a travel command, and that will travel my army to that realm, and then once it gets there, which will take, I didn't look how long it would take, but that might take between 2 to 10 hours or something. And then once I'm there, then I can rate him for his resources. 9 hours. So yeah, it's going to take me 9 hours to get there.
Yeah. So distance matters.
Yeah.
In terms of planning out your raids, and also
Exactly.
you can see, for example, when you go plan a raid, if somebody else might be able, there might be a particularly juicy a vault that's you can sort of raid, and there might be a few people racing towards it, and you can kind of see the travel times of other competitors heading towards that realm. And then when you get there and you're on the realm, there's a race potentially to be the first to fight, or potentially you might want to wait and fight second if you think that the first army might be defeated. So there's strategy.
Yeah, there's a lot of emergent gameplay, and we've really just been focused on getting this kind of core loop of generating, building, raiding down pat, and then we'll keep layering more modules on top, which the Empire guys will talk about in a bit. Actually, they've and then a lot of the other hackathon teams as well. They're all still building things. So the Empire's one specifically was it's well they'll go into it, but it's the perfect module extension to this modular game that we're building. So yeah, there was still a long way to go, but we've achieved a significant amount, and obviously everybody wants to play this game, and I want to play it no more than anybody else. But yeah, it's just taken longer than expected. But yeah, so yeah, that's my travels to Succeeder now. So I'll be traveling. But yeah, you can imagine this map when there's 8,000 people playing, and there's this red lines going everywhere, combat happening everywhere. We could probably indicate it so a little bomb goes off or something when people get attacked, or I don't know, some little swords pop up. But yeah, I didn't.
So whilst we are waiting for Loaf to come back, does anybody have any questions about what they've seen in terms of Eternum, the game? You can type them, or you can just unmute yourself and shout them out. So, okay. Armies limited to 15 units. So, Palamato, Yeah. You can have a total of 30 units in an army. And there are currently 4 building types, and each building produces a heavy and a light version. So cavalry, infantry, archery, and magic. So yeah, there's a sort of conversation going on in the chat. But yeah, so you can kind of see there's a chat about the way that food production works, which I know that is something that Palamato had asked about in the chat, and I've been informed that it's going into the next version of the Master Scroll, which is being updated and has been updated over the weekend. Okay, Loaf, are you back? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move on tomorrow.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can do my bit.
Yeah. Okay. Now, due to a quirk of my Discord, I can't share my screen at the moment tonight. So yeah. Okay. Lovely. Perfect. Okay. So if you're watching, stop watching Loaf screen and head to Amaro's.
1 second. I just got Nitro the other day, so that should work now, I think. All right. Is everybody seeing this?
I am.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. So what we've been up to mostly this month after we went to Lisbon was figuring out the UX. Sort of the main goal was to emphasize and bring forward the UI elements that are relevant to the players, that address the player's problem situation, and to remove or at least de-emphasize things that aren't immediately relevant to a player that will be finding themselves on a specific screen. And we went through various iterations. All of this is public. There, you can go on the web client Discord server where this kind of conversation has been going on and is still going on. I was using Balsamic for wireframing in the process, which also like anybody can check out if they like. This is all public. And yeah, so the idea was just to go through various iterations to make things clearer. And now that, well, it's all a work in progress. Nothing is perfect, but I feel like we're getting close to sort of acceptable user flows, where a new player wouldn't necessarily be completely lost. And apart from that, as Loaf already mentioned, since Midjourney 4 came out, we've been integrating images. Most of them were produced by Loaf. Pinky made one that made it in there as well. The current depiction of the sort of royal advisor that can be found on the Empire page.
But we can. We can. Sorry, I made it back. Sorry, guys, my internet cut out. But yeah, just to touch on those images, like that was, that took 1 hour to do basically, and I just started to sub them in.
Yeah.
But they can evolve quickly, and we could even, do different unit types for every different race now.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, as you said just earlier, it really the landscape there is changing so rapidly. It's really hard to keep track. And I think we both kind of felt that when Midjourney 4 came out, it's kind of a relevant step from before with like Stable Diffusion and earlier iterations of Midjourney. Like It was hit and miss, where maybe like every once in a while you'd get a really cool image, and then most of them were mediocre and some of them were totally useless. And here with Midjourney 4, I feel like the sort of the amount of time you really get a home run is quite impressive. Like I've been really surprised. It's amazingly easy to produce images that if I had to draw them, I mean, it's actually as a trained artist, it's a bit scary as well in a good kind of way. But if I had to draw this kind of stuff, it would take me weeks to render this with like Photoshop and drawing. And now it's a matter of like minutes and trying around. So this is amazing.
Now you have an art team on demand.
Fuck yeah. And so yeah, another main goal was to prepare sort of the atlas to work on smaller screen sizes. So it's still not quite mobile ready, but you can go smaller and things should still be readable. Things shouldn't start overlapping too quickly. And yeah, so generally, I think the mobile design constraints make a lot of sense because they really force you. If you have that little screen real estate, it really forces you to set hard priorities, which is just very often a helpful thing to do in design, whether you do end up having a lot of screen space or not. So I really like sort of submitting myself to that constraint because it helps to make hard choices and to prioritize. I wanted to just real quick shout out to the people who have been working on the client, giving feedback and doing the development implementation stuff, which have been mostly, I think, Fermentador, Lead, Loaf, Redbeard, and Tenox. I might have forgotten somebody. I hope I didn't. And yeah, great work. Thanks, guys. So yeah, what's upcoming now is I think the basic structure of the UX is getting there. I think it's quite usable now. So I'll be turning my attention to actually sort of the visual aspects, or the skin of the UI, the buttons, the look, the feel, and the colors, how the sort of these images that we are generating on with Midjourney, how they integrate into the larger whole. Right now, they feel a bit out of place in the UI. Ideally, sort of the end goal would be that the UI is so pretty that you can just sort of like, you could take a screenshot of any screen and print it out and put it on your wall. We're not quite there yet, but my hope is that in the next month we'll get much closer to that. Apart from that, we'll have to start thinking about tutorial and intro. When a new player first opens up the game, they'll need to have some sort of walkthrough, both in terms of story background, sort of the world and lore, and then the actual game mechanics with the tutorial. The intro, obviously, nothing too long, just something quick to set the mood, make a hook for the player. Everything should be skippable, of course. And yeah, then furthermore, what's also needs to be done is that the atlas, meaning the map, should be more integrated with the UI. We'll have to figure out what we can do there. Loaf has been doing some great things with displaying what armies are up to, or what distances armies would have to travel to get to different realms, and those things are now displayed directly on top of the map. I'd love to see more of this sort of thing, where we can highlight different areas, or we'll have to play around and see what's hard and what's easy to do there with the stack as we currently have it. And then another thing that I'd like to address in the coming month would be to just generally make it easier for the community to contribute art assets. in various ways. Like Midjourney makes this easier just because it lowers the barrier for entry. Like you don't need much art knowledge at all to produce quite amazing assets, and that's great. It's a lot of fun, and I think we should take the opportunity to use these tools because they're really quite easy to use for anybody. They're fun, and since we're a DAO, we should leverage anything that any tool that makes sort of asset contribution accessible to anybody. But that would also include talking about bounties on D work, perhaps even making some Discord integration that enables people to submit new art assets through a bot, through the Squire bot. But this is all pie in the sky for now. And then way off in the future, just something we've been dreaming about and thinking about, or at least musing about, is to at some point touch some 3D content. We definitely want to render some sort of 3D representation of realms and cities. This is a bit off, but yeah.
Just on touching on that, if anybody actually is a WebGL nerd or a Rust graphics lord, that's the kind of direction we want to take. But we're focused on just building this React client first because it's really easy for people to contribute to, and I think the React client will live on either way. And that's the beauty of this game, is that it's headless, as in there can be a React client, there can be a command line client, and there can probably be a really sophisticated graphics client as well. But that's going to take some engineering to do, so that's in the future. But if anyone actually is a WebGL developer, then reach out, because we're kind of exploring that path. But it's a little while off. We're just focused on the mechanics for now. But but to do something this scale, with like different levels of zoom, is quite a challenge. So.
Yeah, indeed. We're making a whole world, literally. Like the planet is the size of Earth, which is quite ambitious. So yeah, I think there's a lot possible. I'm not sure. It could be hard, but I think WebGL makes sort of puts browser games back in the picture in the way that they haven't been for a while. I'm excited to see what we can come up with. All right, and then I just wanted to briefly talk about sort of my thoughts on open art asset production, which is sort of a kind of a inversion of reasoning compared to how art production is usually done in the games industry. Usually it's a very top-down process where during pre-production you hire a bunch of art directors and creative directors, and they sit together and they make an art bible, which is very detailed. And then they produce a bunch of art tests, and you just go out and hire people depending on how well they can complete these art tests and stuff like this. It's a very sort of hierarchical system, which won't work for a DAO. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there because the way of working decentralized just hasn't been explored, and this is sort of new territory. The community first, sort of bottom up approach, and I think this is it's really fascinating. And anybody who has any ideas of how to best approach this, if you ever find yourself wanting to contribute and you don't know how, or you have an idea of how it could be made easier for you and other people like you, let us know, because like I said, this is unexplored territory. It's not obvious how to set up open art production pipeline. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from open source code, because programmers have been working in the open for a while now, and every cool programmer makes their projects openly. It's just it puts permissive licenses like MIT or Apache 2 on it nowadays, whereas the art community or sort of the tradition behind art is still very sort of based on intellectual property, and they don't. Artists are particularly famously anal about not wanting to be copied and things like this. I think this will go away, but essentially, just we have to figure out how to produce art in a decentralized way. And yeah, so I think Midjourney is going to make this easier. In general, if you run into something you don't like about the game, let us know. Come into the relevant chat, whether it's about the client or the art. Just drop your criticism. It'll be useful, even if it's not a constructive criticism. It can be useful. Of course, if you have a solution to come along with your criticism, that's great, but it's not necessary. And if you want to influence the design direction, then yeah, contribute art assets, which is particularly easy to do now with Midjourney. For example, some of the things that we could be doing now is that we have these 16 different orders, which are like 16 different cultures, and would be great if that variety would be sort of represented in the art assets. So each realm has sort of 16 different art assets, which is 8 troop types and 8 building types. If you multiply that by 16, that's 256 different art assets across all the different orders. That's a lot of work, even with Midjourney. I think it'd be great if we can get the community involved so that we can sort of have an evolutionary bottom-up approach on how to design these different orders, instead of having me make a central document that says the order of power has to look, I don't know, Asiatic style, and the order of the foxes has to look, I don't know, like this. It'd be great if actually the community can just start coming in and making suggestions, and we can sort of build on top of what's already been suggested in incremental steps. So yeah. Also, shout out to Neotins, who just recently joined us and will be responsible for setting up the work bounties. Obviously, ideally, if the more successful this project becomes, it'd be great if people could actually, make a living contributing valuable work. So we want to look into how to reward people for contributing as well, little by little. So yeah, we'll be looking at the work as well. And so if you want to play around with Midjourney, Loaf added it to the #MJ channel in Discord, in the Realms Discord. So you don't even have to leave the Realms Discord to use Midjourney and create some art assets and move the design direction in ways that you find enjoyable. And yeah, and that's all.
Cool.
Lovely.
Awesome.
Okay, lovely stuff. Well, thank you, Amaro. And yeah, that
Pleasure.
kind of call to arms in terms of participating. These tools are kind of easy to access, like Midjourney. So yeah, if you want to get involved, you can. Please do. Yeah, I think it's back to Loaf now to run through the 2 documents that have been shared in the House of Lords recently, which are drafts of a constitution and a funding plan. And both of those we've been put to a vote once the drafts are sort of completed. So, Loaf, do you want to run through those?
Yeah, I just shared my screen again. Yeah, so everyone's been talking about this for a while. We've been thinking about it for a long time. I think everyone in the DAO's been thinking about it in terms of funding and the DAO and what we're building. Yeah, I think just before I go into all of this, I think that the true strength of this project is that everyone here is really missionaries in the vision, because we were all here before there was even any like we didn't launch with any like huge fundraising or anything. We kind of just we came up and just formed this whole DAO organically. And everybody here believes in the the mission of decentralized on-chain games. And so that's really where our strengths comes from. And so I just thought it'd be important to just give some context, about the Constitution. And I guess Constitutions are kind of weird things, but I think it makes sense to do this and then lead into a funding path, just so everyone's on the same page about what the DAO is, and what the DAO isn't. And so we're the DAO is governed by the realms. We're building more than just this Eternum game, which we just showed. Like, we're really trying to build this like open gaming protocol that allows anybody to build on, kind of like a on-chain Roblox. And on-chain games are so early, and we've been talking about it for a long time, but like they really are. Like, there's no playbook for these. Like, a lot of the technology that we've had to do, we've basically come up with ourselves. Like, we're writing the book on some of these things. And Eternum, it's only a small game of 8,000 people. It's going to be like a cult, strong game, and it's the core kind of it's the core part of this whole ecosystem, and everything stems from it. But 8,000 realms, it's not. We want millions of people to play on this, so that's where the adventurers come in. So just to be clear, like, we're building way more than just this single Eternum game. That's just, Eternum's really this testing, proving ground for all the technology which we can leverage into the next set of games. And so that's the Bibliotheca DAO's mission, is to be this game studio and incubator and research lab for bleeding edge games, and we'll leverage all the technology we can for that. And so some of our things that never sway away from. There should be no single entity controlling the DAO. We should be funding projects in the ecosystem. We should be a place where anybody can discuss leading in technology, and we should encourage that. Everything we do should be open source. Am I still here? I didn't cut out, did I?
Yes, you are. You cut out for like a microsecond, but
okay. Okay. Everything we should do should be open source, CCO, and we should be the DAO should be a maintainer of the gaming protocol, and that maintainers should be maybe multiple teams maintaining that. Our short-term mission is to deliver the first versions of Eternum, which is this is kind of the core team's first short-term vision. Deliver the first versions of the Adventurers protocol. Build all the tooling around that, and deliver the AMM, the order book, and the NFT AMM. So that's like the short-term vision. That's what we're hyper-focused on delivering first. But the long-term vision is incubate games, govern the open protocol, become self-sufficient through protocol fees, become like an industry-leading research lab, build and maintain the infrastructure, encourage centralized entities to build on top of this protocol, because that's really the end game of all open protocols in any really technology, and especially in blockchain tech. Like, I think people still don't realize like how early we are in this whole kind of space. I mean, Ethereum's just trying to figure out like how even scale a billion people, and it's only doing that through rollups, and rollups are only like a year old. But these base protocols like ETH or L2s or the game protocol we're building is they should be first and foremost decentralized, not maintained, not controlled by any single entity, but centralized entities should be able to build on top of them and build sustainable business models, just like what's happening with ETH, with like Immutable X, with these roll-up companies. So that's the long-term goal, is that we build the tooling, and companies can come and build on top of us. Yeah. And so I suggest everyone should just read this. It's a bit of context around this. We could probably set this in stone at some point once we've had more feedback on it. But it leads into the funding path. So there's been a lot of talk around this, and I've talked to a lot of people about the DAO. And I've talked to a lot of legal legal people about the DAO and decentralization, and what what it means to be a DAO, and like what's the strongest path for a DAO to take. And I've kind of reached a conclusion. Well, is that a DAO doesn't actually have to have an entity. Probably its strength is DAO shouldn't have entities, to be honest. I don't think. It just adds another kind of vector for attack into the DAO. So a DAO, yeah. And in terms of funding, like DAOs are tricky things to fund from institutional investors because they are no entities. And I think it's probably apparent to some people in space, but there are, honestly, I don't blame a lot of normies for thinking a lot of crypto is a scam at this point because of what's happened with FTX. If you don't know, then you probably just look at crypto and think, what the fuck's going on there? But a lot of these big projects that have been funded for millions of dollars, they actually have two deals done with insiders. They have a equity deal, and they also have a a token deal. And what they do is when the project's released, and they have the token is released on the community, and basically the community is the exit liquidity. But then that investor still has the equity tokens. So that's what I like. The core team does not want to see that happen at all, and it was never going to happen. But I thought it was clear to make that apparent of like how the system works. And I've said it a few times, like the strength of this project is this decentralization. So we shouldn't sway from that. And it doesn't make sense to give some parties a discount when public or community or anybody that wants to invest can't get that same discount. So we never swayed from that. So it does made it tricky because there is no entity to invest in. But that's fine because we're a team of missionaries and we're going to keep building this thing either way. But the good thing is that we do have alternatives, and we do have a decentralized alternative to do this. So we still have runway, and we probably. Hello.
I see Grog ship posting in the chat. Hello, mate. Hello. We lost you about 1.5 minutes ago.
I just moved into a new apartment, and my internet here I've just discovered sucks. So I'm tethered on my phone. It won't happen again.
Right. So just rewind back about so you were just saying that we're missionaries and that regardless of
there's paths to funding either way. Like it's just the DAO itself should stay pure Web3. Like that's the most important thing. As if there's because if there's a decentralization comes strength and anti-fragility.
And that model of a protocol being built on by companies that do have more traditional structures is a model that is used in Ethereum as an analogy. We're not making this up here. It's something people are doing.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's definitely some still things to be discussed around this, but with the with the fundraising, we would allocate some of it to the core team to deliver the short-term mission, add some to a liquidity protocol. Create some protocol and liquidity, and also create some kind of grants pool which we can nurture the next generation of play to die type games building on this. So some of the deals that I think everybody on the call has probably read this because I see everyone here is mostly OGs. So this is the draft deal, 25 million lords, but there's been chat around potentially halving that, which whichever path we take, I think will be good. I'm not too swayed. But option one would be just a pure OTC round through a platform like Alien or something similar. And the pros to that is that it's quick to action, it's fully decentralized. Anybody in the community can participate if they want. Any funds or VCs can also participate if they want. But it does make it harder for some value add institutions. But at this point, it's such a small round that a lot of institutions it's too small for some anyway. Option 2 would be this is some of the feedback that the thing with Lords is that it doesn't have any governance structure, like doesn't have any vote, so it does also make it trickier for people to buy it from an OTC round. So option 2 would be to actually create a new type of governance token plus Lords and do some OTC round, but this is obviously clunkier and definitely needs a lot more thought, and it would be a total change of tokenomics, but I thought I would just put it here as a to explain that is another option. And then option 3, which isn't really like necessarily an option that people need to vote on, but the other option could be that some of the core team actually spin up a legal entity to start building on the open protocol, and it becomes the maintainer of part maintainer of the protocol, keeps building Eternum, but also is a central entity that has its own cap table, but it wouldn't have any tokens or anything that it could sell onto the community as liquidity. It'd be basically a centralized company built to design on-chain games on the open protocol with its own type of business model. And I think this will come either way, the direction the DAO takes. It's probably just a little early for this, but this is the end game anyway. And I know there's probably a bunch of investors that would want to invest in a company to build on-chain games. So this is a path if the DAO decides not to do any type of OTC round, that could be taken in maybe 6 to 12 months time anyway. So yeah, so that's most of that. But I think we're just going to have if anyone has any questions, we can just talk about it now as in this context. If anyone wants to surface anything about any of this.
And you can type your questions if you prefer you can either put it in the Realms chat, or you can to the chat that's comes with this voice channel, and we'll pick it up.
All right, I think Felix is typing.
Yeah, we're watching the dots. Oh,
don't be shy.
Waiting to see who's going to start typing next, and then spook them away from our
So
questions.
if anyone just it can just be a general chat about stuff, whatever. I mean, don't be afraid. It's just this is just all discussion around this stuff. But yeah, I mean, if no one wants to talk on the phone right now, then we could probably move on, and we could just queue up all the questions, and I can just answer them all at the end then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next up is the what is next up? I can't actually see the document. Oh. Okay. For this. Lovely. Loot Hero. Okay, this is cool. Loot Hero, do you want to unmute yourself and potentially it might be good if you screen share, because I can't.
Yeah, I can screen share. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'll just give you a quick introduction. So Loot Hero joined the core team. He's a very recognizable face in the general loot scene, but joined the core team now and has been developing the contracts for adventurers, the Roblox side of the Realms ecosystem. So yeah, he's going to talk through his latest work on the adventurers contracts, actually with Distracted Death too. So it's not just a one-man army.
All right, great. Yes, I think a reasonable way to frame some of this, at least a portion of it, would be like loot plus plus. for adventurers. And so that's an analogy for like C and C++, for those of you that are familiar with those programming languages. And so when it comes to loot on StarkNet, the core design objectives for that would be to have a layered architecture where you have at the core minimal or no biases at all. So statements like katanas are made out of steel and the density of steel is so many grams per cubic meter. So just factual statements that if you were to ask the entire planet, any reasonable person would answer the same. There's no bias for the information. So at the core, you have information like that. And then as you get further away from the core, you have more biases, more opinions being made about something. But you always want to push those biases as far out as you can. And when they exist, you want them to be easily modifiable. And so it's sort of a hybrid. If we think about the original loot as being everything's omitted, intentionally omitted for your interpretation, we're taking a slightly different approach here, which is that we're going to provide defaults, but make it very, very easy for you to change those defaults if you don't like them. And the defaults, where those defaults exist in terms of the stack of technology we're building, will be as high up as we possibly can get it, so that when things do need to change lower down, the effect that they have is minimized. So that's the overall goal of when we think about bringing loot to StarkNet. We think about what I like to say, like freeing the items from the bags. I feel like on mainnet, got these loot bags, but for the most part, the items have been stuck in the bags. I think we've had a few brave builders that have been willing to take the items out of the bag with these separate contracts. And we've had a lot of fun when we take them out of the bags. But generally speaking, I don't think we've used the items nearly as much. And so when we bring them to StarkNet, we definitely want these items out of the bags, and we actually want to treat the bags separate from the items. So the items will do the things that you kind of expect the items to do. The swords, the weapons will be used for attack, possibly defense. The armor items, the demon husk, the holy chest plates will be used for armor. The items will do the things you would expect the items to do. The bags will be used to store, protect, and carry the items. So we can think about the bags as being the safest place to store your items. So they can be on you, they can be in your bag, and if they're neither, then they're generally going to be classified as vulnerable to being stolen. Is a good way to think about the bag primitive. And then we need someone to carry these items, right? We need an adventurer. So adventurers becomes another primitive that gets released as part of this stack, as part of this base layer. And the adventurers, at the most basic level, can equip the items and attack, defend. And then we also have a set of non-player characters. So right now that we have like a beast module that's there that we're playing with, but that'll get expanded. So we'll have beast, obstacles, all sorts of non-player characters that can be interacted with. And then the other thing that the stack will come with is these libraries as well. So on StarkNet, on chain, you'll have these libraries to actually kind of serve as the glue between all of these. And so the ability for an adventurer to equip an item, the ability to see how much an item weighs, as we'll see in the next slides, all of that will be provided through these libraries, and all the libraries will be on chain. So if people want to use this base layer, it's all there. So it's sort of like if loot was just a cement slab that people could build on. This would be like a cement slab, and then you have like the framing, some electrical hookups. But the idea being that if you want to move anything, it's really easy to do that. And we'll see how we accomplish that here in the next few slides. I'm mostly going to focus on the item for for this particular town hall meet. And mostly I'm just going to try to communicate how we're accomplishing these three things through the items. So maybe in another meeting, we'll talk about the adventurers, the bags, and the beasts, for example. So the structure of the item, generally speaking, is going to look something like this. And so a lot of these attributes of a loot item look recognizable, right? Like we have greatness in the original loot items. We have an implied rank in the original loot items. So type is somewhat new, but it's more of a helper, more of a utility attribute for the item. So an item can be a weapon, and if it's a weapon, then it's a blade, a sword, it's a bludgeon, like a warhammer, or it's a magical item if it's a weapon, like a grimoire. And then if it's armor, then its type is going to be hide, metal, or cloth. And I won't showcase this in this call, but effectively this just sets up a rock, paper, scissors combat system. So at the base level, we have this rock, paper, scissors combat system where a blade against metal, probably not going to do so well, right? Probably very minimal damage if you hit somebody with your sword and they have a metal chest plate, but metal against cloth, probably highly effective, right? So you can kind of just see the obvious pairings there, and that gets expressed through the combat system in the library. So the items also have a material. So a lot of the projects that pulled the items out of the loot bags on L1 tended to refer to an item as having a class. And most generally we had hunters, warriors, and mages. Because right here we're talking about really the core of this layered architecture, which wants to minimize any kind of biases or opinions. You don't get a class here, you just get a material. We can say that a gold ring is made out of gold. And per my point earlier, I think very few people would disagree with that statement. It's called gold ring, it's probably made out of gold. Swords being made out of steel, I also think I think most people would tend to agree. So items get a material, they have an experience. So we want items to be able to grow in greatness, and this should actually be up to 21. So we want items to grow in greatness because for those of you that know the loot contract really well, you'll know that as the items grow in greatness, then certain capabilities get unlocked. And eventually we'd like more items to have those abilities unlocked and discover all of the hidden names and all of the items, etc. So XP just kind of serves as this non-discrete incrementer for greatness. So the combat or like experience system would have a mapping of XP to greatness. And then these last two are just pointers to the other NFT structures. So if your item is equipped to an adventurer, then it'll have a pointer to that adventurer. So we know that this item is equipped. If it's in a bag, it would have a pointer to the bag. So I apologize for posting like code screenshots. This may be a little tough on your guys' eyes, but I'll narrate it fairly well. So I don't think you have to really worry about this being code. But this is just showing what the item materials look like, really in code, because I think it's important to show like this is actually how this thing is going to work. And so each loot item gets assigned a material type. So we can see here that the silver ring is getting applied the type silver, and everything's getting assigned. So like the wands end up getting mapped to different types of woods, some soft woods, some hardwoods. So there's a little bit of a bias or like an opinion there, right? It's like, you know, I kind of, as the one who made these mappings, was decided that, you know, the ghost wand is made out of elderwood. But we'll see how that bias gets kind of minimized later on. So each material then has a density associated with it. This is like a no bias situation. Like this isn't my opinion that the density of gold is 19,300 kilograms per meter squared. That's like the known physical property of these materials. So there's a bias here where we'd say that something is made out of this material. For some items it's obvious, for other ones it's not. Once we do that, we get the density, and that's just a known thing. And then last, we have the size of the object. So again, probably a little bit more biased than even the material. But these are actually pretty good. Like I kind of looked up, like wands in different movies and how big these wands are, and then did some like geometry to calculate these like millimeter cubed. So these should all be pretty close. But the key is that these are all just constants that can live in a file that can be easily updatable, not just forked, but like a contract stores all of these. And if you decide that you have better mappings, you can call that contract with your mappings, input your new values. And then what you'll see is when you use our combat system, you just pass in, you say, well, I don't want to use the defaults, I want to use mine. And then you can use all of our systems, but get your values. So again, it's like, we're not leaving everything omitted for anyone to interpret. We're providing reasonable defaults, but then making it really easy if somebody wants to interpret things differently.
Yeah, I'll just
So-
touch on that just one more time. Like, so what what we're really trying to achieve here is like this is meant to be an autonomous world of loot, like that's fully on chain. Like no one's done this level of detail on an RPG on chain, and so that's why we thought it was prudent to just go through some of this detail. But obviously, as a player, like you're not going to be looking at code. You're just going to know, your gold ring weighs what, that kilogram meter cubed. But like, yeah. So that's really what this is trying to do. Like we've created the primitives of all these items on chain to allow people to build these autonomous worlds that will run forever.
So then, yeah, we're kind of like pretty close in on the layered architecture. We're pretty close to the core here, and then we'll start to like get away from the core now, and you'll see how these properties surface in the outer cores. And so again, another screenshot. I'm sorry, probably could have formatted this better, but nonetheless, I think it gets the point through. So the library provides a get item weight in milligrams. And so you can give any loot item, you can call this library, it's on chain, highly available. Anybody can call this, give it a loot item, it'll return how much that thing weighs. Now the weight calculation, it's just physics, right? So we're just going to take the density times the volume. And then we just saw that those constants are just constants. Now the density, probably no one's going to change that unless you're trying to create, I don't know, an alternate universe where densities are different. But most notably, you might change like the volume, for example, or something like that. Or you might change the material. You can see that here there's this helper function where you can give it a loot item ID and it'll return what it's made out of. So if you don't like the fact that maybe wands are made out of wood, maybe you want them made out of an alternate material, you could, again, update those mappings. And then when you call this item material, it'll return a different material ID. And now none of the rest of the code has to change. So you're still, yeah, anytime someone disagrees, if you fully grok this, which I know it'll be hard to do during this presentation, the whole idea is that if somebody disagrees with any of these decisions, it's going to be maximally easy for them to make like not even a full line change, like a one character change of code, and then now they get the whole new physics engines essentially. And then going one layer further out, so here we have like test cases for item weights. So these are test cases that run, that prove the code does what it does. So here we can give it a platinum ring. We can say, okay, physics engine for loot, how much does a platinum ring weigh? And it returns, it's asserting that it weighs 6,435 milligrams. And if you were to just do your own research and look at, on average, what's the size of a ring and the density of platinum, et cetera, you're going to end up with a number very, very close to this. Same with all of these other items. Now, the rings are probably the easiest ones, but nonetheless, you get this physics engine that approximates the real world really, really well. We're kind of headed outwards, where now we have these library functions. You can give it an item and you get the weight back. And then the next layer is then kind of like on the adventurer side. So here's a snippet from our combat system. And so when you have an adventurer right now, you mint an adventurer, you equip some items, and then the only thing you can do right now is explore. So you hit this explore button and you could discover something. And right now, the only thing you can discover is a beast. And if you discover a beast, then you have the option to attack or flee. And to make it so that you can't just spam explore infinitely, there's the act of fleeing isn't guaranteed. And so you can see in this little snippet that we get the weight of your equipment. So again, think layers, and we're going one layer up now, as we have this other helper function here that says, get the weight of my equipment. And I can give it my adventurer, And under the hood, it's going to see which items you have equipped, pass it down to those lower layer library functions, and it's going to flow back up and provide a weight. So now when it comes to the speed of your adventure, it's going to be like your base speed, which is your dexterity, minus the weight of your equipment. And then that's going to affect your chance of fleeing. Now, code like this, like the combat system that we're building on adventures, is primarily intended to exercise and strengthen the base layer that we're building. So this would be like, I mean, you can see this is only like 10 lines of code, but we can accomplish a relatively significant amount, all the way to when the user flees. If you want to communicate to the blockchain that this adventure is no longer in combat, you have this like one line code which says that this adventure is now idling, like it can participate in more quests. So yeah, the adventure combat stuff, I think we've uncovered some really fun primitive game loops, but the most important thing is the base layer right now and making it maximally easy for people to build on top of this. So what the adventures look like now is DHAM has done some really great work with stable diffusion. And so when you mint your adventure, you can have effectively a prompt stored on chain with a seed that gives your adventure an image. And you can pick that when you mint. So you can kind of choose what you're going to look like. And then you kind of own that seed, like that prompt in that seed. So like you become that adventure. Yeah, the rest of this is pretty straightforward. So the last thing, the last really two parts I'll cover before I pass it to Distracted Dev to talk about the metadata, is this model that we're experimenting with a little bit right now that we think could be really fun. And we have this like mostly plumbed in already to the current adventure system that we're running in alpha, which is that when you mint your adventure, some amount of the RC tokens get stored inside that adventure and are effectively non-transferable. So think about them like in their pockets, and if they die, then whoever like killed them essentially can take control of those tokens. And so right now, since it's mostly just Beast, the way that works is that when you mint your adventure, 50 Lords tokens gets escrowed within your adventure. And if you encounter a beast and you're unable to flee and it kills you, then that beast now gets those 50 Lords tokens. And that beast is also on chain now. So other adventurers can bump into that same beast and they'll see that, oh, this beast has 50 Lords. But the thing is that when that beast killed the other adventurer, it also gained experience and power. So it's now stronger. So it creates this feedback loop where people start going after these beasts that have killed a lot of adventurers because they have lots of loot, essentially, it could be tokens, etc. But they're also getting stronger as well. So these NPCs are really fun on chain because, yeah, they're on chain, essentially. I think is why they're fun. So they're there for everybody to discover. They kind of look like wallets where they can have all of this loot naturally on them, which serves as a bounty. All right, and so the last slide before the metadata is kind of where are we now? So we have the ability to mint adventures, equip loot, explore and discover beast, fight or flee. You can kill beast, gain experience, level up. If you die, then the beast gets XP and also gets your lords. So the part that's coming next is really going to be releasing this in some kind of alpha mode, and that's probably going to be CLI. So this will just be a command line game where you'll mint your adventure, you'll equip, you'll explore. And it also, you probably won't live very long. There won't be any way to restore health. So when you explore and you battle and you take damage, you're not going to be able to recover from that damage. And as we saw earlier, if you explore and you find a beast, there's a chance that you're not going to be able to get away from it. So it's going to kill you. So I think what we'll find on testnet is it'll almost be like an arcade game where people are trying to get the high score. It's not going to be a game that people survive for months. I think most people will die relatively quickly, but hopefully we'll have a fun high score leaderboard that people can compete for. All right, so yeah, I'll pass it to Distracted Dev, who has been integral in building all of this. I mean, he's really the Cairo giga brain that's just helped translate a lot of this into code that actually executes StarkNet, and I'm infinitely grateful to have had him as a dev partner the last month or so.
Thank you, Loot Hero. And the opposite for you as well. I think you live and breathe the Loot narrative. So it's a pleasure turning your ideas and assisting you in creating the contracts. Mine's actually very brief, so it's just the one slide. Leo has covered a lot of the juicy stuff. Mine's on-chain metadata, which is less exciting, but I also find quite cool. There's a common con on StarkNet and basically blockchains in general that storage is expensive, and it becomes difficult to create data-rich applications and backends. Most projects will have their metadata stored off-chain on something like IPFS, but that raises concerns on data persistency. So essentially, what I was going to introduce is just that we're producing all of our metadata on chain, and we're basically storing stuff that we need and then converting it into using code to text and creating data-rich attributes on your loot items and adventurers. So this improves things like data persistency. We're using different packing techniques to really reduce the costs of storing all of this data with static and dynamic optimizations. The data is dynamic as well. So on your NFT on something like Aspect, your attributes actually update while you're playing. And for example, something like on adventurers, we have around 25 attributes, and most of those are dynamic and change while you're playing. So things like your XP and a bunch of different traits that your adventurers have. So that will be updated on all NFT marketplaces, all NFT explorers separately. So it creates nice interoperability. And there's also interoperability between the modules as well. So, for example, if you equip an item with your adventurer, not only your adventurer metadata gets updated, but also the item metadata as well to reflect the adventurer that's holding it. So yeah, essentially, we're using tools to create still a data-rich application while reducing costs. So yeah, is it handing over to the Eternum guy, the Emperor guys?
Yes. So hey, well, thank you. That's like a dive into structure being built out for sort of what we're thinking of the roadblocks of on-chain gaming, which is the adventure. And so I think we're kind of overrunning. So we've got a little bit about Lisbon, which we'll come back to. But if the guys from Empire are there to take over,
hey guys,
hello, take over the stream and
hi guys.
Hello. So yeah, these guys are participated in the hackathon, and they built a module called Empire, which they will talk to you about. But I think we've got them on to the call today because they've got on from the hack to actually building this, and it's because of the way that it doesn't relate to the balancing of the game in any way. So these guys can sort of build this now. And a partnership has formed with Distracted, who's building up Guildly. So it's just checking in with a team that came through from the hackathon and is now building a module that will allow people to do more things on Eternum. Over to you guys.
All right, quick question. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me know if that works. I don't know if it works. I'm supposed to share emotion at the moment.
Yeah, I had this, but I don't.
Let me check again. All right. Maybe tomorrow. Do you want to try sharing on your side? Because me it doesn't work.
Yep, I'll try. From 1 second.
Thanks. All right. In the meantime, maybe I can just introduce myself for a second. So basically, we're both developers, and we participated in the 2 Matchbox hackathon. The first one in July, and the second one here like in October. And so yeah, we've been starting to code in Cairo for like since July, and like we really like the language. So and so yeah, like the last hackathon we did the Empire project, and I guess part of the project might become, or I guess will become, a realms module, and another part of the project will transform itself or like go to the Guildly project with StarkNet Dev.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think Emric did a good introduction already. For myself, I've been working as a dev for about 2 years quickly, and joined the StarkNet world since about 6 months, and we've been doing a lot of hacks, well, couple hacks with Matchbox DAO with Emric since then. We for the last hack, which was related to the Ethereum project, we built the Empire module, which was closely related to kind of the Guildly mindset. So it would allow players to cooperate together, and augment the cooperation capabilities that you could have on the game. And so now the idea is to include one of the small modules we had from the Empire project, which was the mercenary module, which allowed players to put a bounty on some realms, and then you could, through attacking those bounty targeted realms through our mercenary contract, you could claim that bounty for yourself. So one of the advantage of this model is it's very easy to integrate into the realms ecosystem. We're not making any breaking changes or anything. So I think it's a nice kind of experiment to do, as a way to experiment on plugins, models that you could add later to the realms game. So it was also mentioned during this round table, but there's gonna be a kind of distance aspect in the realms atlas, and so actually having this bounty system would actually allow you to extend the reach that your realm could have on the atlas. So you could start to put a bounty on a realm that's located 24 hours away from you, and so have someone close to that realm attack them within the hour, instead of having to send troops over there and wait for hours on and hours on. So yeah, so the smart contract we're gonna deploy, we already have a very small GitHub for it, which for now is quite empty, but we'll be working on it soon. So you'll be able to issue a bounty on an enemy realm to attack this realm through our smart contract. And if the outcome of the combat against that realm is in your favor, it would transfer the bounty straight to you. And then of course we'll have a bunch of viewing functions to kind of allow realms to query from the contract any bounty information it needs. And this is I think this has been shared on the Discord, but this is the spec we've kind of made for the mercenary module. So yeah, if you guys have, we
Yeah.
did, yeah.
So basically, there's a bounties channel on the Discord now. So if you guys want to check out the technical spec that we did, and also check out the repo that we've just created to kind of see how far we're going, and also give us some feedback. Yeah, don't hesitate, especially on these open questions that you can kind of see in the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. I mean, we had a chat. We actually met. We all hung out in Lisbon and in London. And I think that the reason for pushing this module first is that it's as the guy said, it's non-breaking to the actual mechanics of the game, as in like fermented or almost as a nervous breakdown whenever we talk about a new mechanic. Because games are very tricky to balance. So we're you get anything that's going to change, like resource consumption or something, needs to be carefully considered. And so this mercenary bounty module is very this is layers on top of the game, and so we thought it was a good idea to use this as a test case to the first kind of third-party module. And so there's still some things to figure out, but yeah, I think it's very exciting.
All right. Yeah, I think that was it for us. Maybe last one thing. So we're both based in Brussels. So in Brussels in Belgium. So if any of you guys pass by, just don't hesitate to contact us. Just to grab a coffee or talk about StarkNet or Realms or whatever. That's it.
Yes, amazing. Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, and that's wonderful. It's just really nice for us to do something, host a hackathon, ideas come through, they're good, and then they get built. And that's been like a really lovely experience. So the last thing to talk about, like Squiddy's got some AOBs of stuff that's happening. There was a thing about Lisbon, but I think we've been going too long. And
yeah, I think we just do that next time. It's not. Yeah.
Okay, so Squiddy, yeah, just want to run through those AOBs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you share your screen and put the slide on 45, please?
Yeah, just some quick updates, so we won't drag this out any longer. Are you getting that up, Loaf, or?
Oh, you wanted me to get it up? Oh, sorry.
Well, I can just quickly start anyway. I mean,
Did you ask for me to do that? Sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't miss that. I missed that. Sorry, hang on.
it's been a meeting since
Slide
7 a.m.
slide 45 in the thingy thing.
There are some quick Discord
45.
updates. Mostly, so Redbeard's implemented a new verification bot, guild.xyz. So now you can verify your realm even if it's staked or not. And we have added a new role currently named as Lord's Lord, which can be changed, just verifying that you hold Lords. And there'll be more roles coming once the game is launched. We're going to do it around engagement in the game instead of what assets you own. So that will come in the future. The other change is we've opened up more core game dev channels. So everyone from members and above can view what's going on in the core game dev channels. Just aligning with building in the open. We're directing all our core dev chat just so everyone can see what's going on. And if you have any questions and you don't have access to write in it, which only contributors in core dev core lords have, then drop it in Realms chat or in the councils. The hackathon, the Lord's Bounty, they're going to be distributed today, and those participants also now have access in the core game dev channels. So, get involved in these things, and you will be granted access, proving yourself. And lastly, just the Master Scroll version 4. Loaf and I have been working on that, just adding in all the new mechanics with travel and combat and adding new images. So we should launch that in the next 2 days.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool.
Yes. So if anyone has any questions that they've been storing up, this is the time to unmute or in the chat. I think it's just so thorough, no questions.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was really wonderful. Thank you. It's obviously been a long call. Just so much to talk about. And thank you for everyone who participated in this and for all the feedback and support that we constantly get from you guys in Gordon on Twitter. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lords. Cheers.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.